We're going to practice 6 fraction questions that most students should know by the end of grade 3. I understand that math can be challenging to tackle alone. This channel is here to support and assist you or your child in learning math. What you'll need: a pencil, download our video worksheet, link in the comments, or use your own piece of paper, and time to use your brain, so no calculators are allowed. Here's a look at 6 fraction questions that we're going to solve. Feel free to pause and solve the question on your own first, or watch Ms. John guide you through the solutions. Feel free to use the timestamp below to go directly to the answer key. Question number 1, we're going to color in the fraction 1/4. Make sure to download the worksheet to easily complete this and the other questions. In order to answer the questions, we need to understand what the numbers in the fraction represent. The bottom number, known as the denominator, represents the total number of squares. So if we look at the fraction drawn, we're going to look to see, are there even 4 squares? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, the denominator represents the total number of squares we must have. The top number, known as the numerator, represents the total numbers of squares we must color in. Since the top number of the fraction is 1, we're going to color in 1 square. 1. So the fraction drawn is the answer that represents 1/4 drawn. Question number 2. We're going to color in the fraction 2/6. In order to answer the question, we need to understand what the numbers in the fraction represent. Bottom number, known as the denominator, represents the total number of squares. So if we look at the fraction drawn, we're going to look to see, are there even 6 squares? Again, the denominator represents the total number of squares we must have. So let's check. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The top number, known as the numerator, represents the number of squares that must be colored in. Since the top number of the fraction is 2, we are going to color in 2 squares. 1, 2. So the fraction drawn is the answer that represents 2/6. Question number 3, 5/8. In order to answer the questions, we need to understand what the numbers in the fraction represents. The bottom number, known as the denominator, represents the total number of squares. So if we look at the fraction drawn, we're going to look to see, are there even 8 squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, the denominator represents the total number of squares we must have, and in this case, we have 8. The top number, known as the numerator, represents the total number of squares we must color in. Since the top number of the fraction is 5, we're going to color in 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fraction drawn is the answer that represents 5/8. Question number 4. We're going to color in 3/4. First, we're going to determine what the denominator is. So in this case, the denominator is 4. Next, we're going to determine that the circle is divided into 4 pieces. So let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to determine what is the numerator. The numerator is 3. So 3 squares must be colored in. Since the top number of the fraction is 3, we're going to color in 3 squares. 1, 2, 3. So the fraction drawn is the answer that represents 3/4. Question number 5. Color in the fraction 1/3. So we have the denominator that represents the total number of sections the circle should be divided in. In this case, it's 3. So let's double check. 1, 2, 3. Now that we know that the circle is divided into 3 sections, we're going to look at, what does that big 1 represent? The big 1 represents the whole number. That means one entire circle is going to be all colored in. And then that top number of the fraction is the numerator. So that means the second circle, we only got to color in 1 part of the circle. So as we know, the 1 represents the whole number. So that means the entire first circle is going to be all filled in. So 1, 2, 3 to represent the 1. Now the numerator is 1/3. That means in the second circle, we're going to make sure it represents 1/3. So that means we're going to color in 1 part of the circle. So 1. And again, that represents 1/3. So this is the answer for the fraction drawn for 1 1 over 3. Question number 6. 1 7 over 8. Before we begin, let's break down what does this mixed fraction actually represent. So the 8 represents the denominator, the 1 represents the whole number in the fraction, and then the 7, the numerator, represents the number that essentially we're going to color in. Let's double check that these are divided into 8 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So for the whole number, which is 1, for the first bar, we're going to color in the entire bar. So all 8 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that represents the 1 part of the whole number. So remember, the 7 represents the numerator, and that's going to tell us how many squares we're going to color in. So in this case, it's going to be 7 squares. So the bottom bar, we're going to color in 7 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's going to represent 7 over 8. So the fraction drawn is the answer that represents 1 7 over 8. Here's the answer key. If you got an answer wrong, use a timestamp to go back and check your solution. Good job at taking ownership over your education. You did it! See you in the next video.